Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's time to take the global stories that has made it to the front pages of our national dailies. And joining us this morning is Professor Kamilu Sani Fage. He's from the Department of Political Science, Bayero University, Kano. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day to you. I know that just passed over the weekend, but still, happy Valentine's Day to you. We love you here at Plus TV.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so let's get straight into the papers. And this morning we'll begin with the Nigerian Tribune. Now, it starts with some political matters because that's what leads this paper this morning. And it talks about local government polls. Adeleke reports Oyetola security chiefs to Tinubu. The writer here says, accuses them of plotting mayhem in Osun today. Another says, I am a man of peace, respect court ruling, Oyetola tells Adeleke. NLC declares stay at home for local government workers, and planned public holiday can't stop our chairman from resuming. That is according to the APC. So of course there's been a rift between Adeleke and Oyetola. But what do you think about this story? I mean, it seems like this is what happens every time there is an election coming up in any way or form. Everybody, both parties are always, pitting themselves against each other. But what do you think about this that is happening in Osun State at the moment?
Yeah, you see, whenever there is an election, it is a struggle. Who will want to control the local government or the state? So this is not an isolated case. It is all over. Wherever there is such election, it is usually a sham because the party, the governing party will always win everything. And, that is why there is this talk or this struggle whenever an election comes close, because the opposition will feel that no matter what, they are not going to get their way through because the ruling party will try to block it. So I think what we need to do is not just to make election a ritual. We should let the people's view to count and let them determine who will rule them. And that is the essence of democracy, but not a struggle just because I am in the party is in power. They will they want to muzzle all other parties. So I think what is happening in Osun is a replication of what has happened in so many places, and is likely going to happen in many other places as well.
Well, I think this is where we need to, especially with our electoral system in Nigeria, we definitely need to do better. Even if I am looking to get this position, I should be a good sportsman, regardless of what it is. And instead of pitting ourselves against each other, we should find ways to work together, to be honest. Another story here says, still on political matters, it says, Matawale cautions Babachir Lawal affirms Northern Nigeria's unwavering support for Tinubu. So in fact, one of our top trending stories this morning was someone saying that the northern elites feel marginalized, that they don't feel included when it comes to Tinubu's administration. And of course, they were part of the people who made him win, who gave him that victory in 2023. But Matawale right now is saying, Northern Nigeria is in full support for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I want to get your take on it because one of the things I said was, I understand how it's important that everybody needs to feel represented, but it should be based on capacity and value, don't you think?
That is what is the essence of democracy. You see, the people's view is the determining factor. But all these things that they are talking about is just an elite struggle. I mean, whether Matawale, Ganduje, and all the rest that they are saying the North is fully behind Tinubu, and Babashir and others are saying the North is not going to vote for Tinubu come 2027. I think the determining factor will be the performance of the government. Right now, if free and fair election were to take place, I don't think the present government will win, not only in the north, but all over the country, because of the level of poverty, inflation, insecurity, and other things. If that is to allow the people to determine. So I think all these things that they are talking about is just the talk of politicians. They don't have real feeling of the Nigerians. They don't. Actually, they are talking, everybody is talking to defend his own position. Like the saying goes, where somebody stands on an issue depends on where he sits. Now, because the Mutawalli and the rest are sitting on government side, that is why they are thinking like that. But they can't go back home and talk about that, because they know people are suffering and there is these things. So the only way out of 2027 for the government is to now address these issues. Anything other than that, I don't think that is going to augur well for the government or for the ruling party. Because if the danger is that if they try to muzzle their way through, they may cause crisis, which is all a negative thing. So performance should have been the yardstick, not talk, not propaganda, either side for or against the government.
Right, another story here says cost of obtaining cash remains high despite CBN's enforcement measures. So in fact, another top trending story was the fact that the CBN has increased the tariff for people who want to use the ATM cash points. So if you want to get your money off an ATM, you'll be paying about 100 naira. For standalone ATMs, about 500 naira. So I don't know what the measure is that they're trying to put in place. And this says cost of obtaining cash remains high despite CBN's enforcement measure. What's your take, especially on the tariff and the fact that finding the cash is a big deal? So most times you have to go to maybe a POS operator, and of course you have to spend money. So it's almost like from me putting my money in the bank, I have to spend money to get it back.
Yeah, you see, this is overburdening the Nigerian ordinary persons. Okay, now they have to pay. There is an increase in ATM usage and other things. I think that is why Serap has given the central bank 48 hours to rescind this decision, or they take them to court, because we are passing everything on to the ordinary person. Already, you see, the inflation is very high. There are so many taxes here and there, and the purchasing power of the ordinary person or of Nigeria is very weak, is deteriorating by the day, and so I think it's highly insensitive for the central bank to raise this issue. Okay, and the fact is that, like you said, people want cash and they cannot get it. You have to go to either POS or other things to buy naira. The same naira that you put in the bank. After all, the banks are making money. It is not their own money. It is people's money is good deposited in it. And now you tax them. There are so many taxes in terms of that one. It is only in Nigeria where we tax even the unemployed, by source doing. Because those who have bigger amount and put it in the bank, they are doing tax. So I think in terms of justice and fairness, the central bank should look at that and rescind on the decision even before Serap goes to court against that policy.
I think this is where empathy comes in from our leaders, because it's important that you understand how the people are feeling and you know what's happening out there. It's not just sitting in your offices and, your political appointments because, of course, you know that you can afford anything. You're not even paying for most of those things. The government is paying for that. But then the common man in Nigeria are the ones facing the brunt of all of these policies and these decisions that is being made by the government. So this is where empathy comes in, because we're still talking about electricity tariff. We're still talking about fuel subsidy being gone. We're still talking about telecoms tariff, seeing this as well. And inflation is at an all-time high. So sometimes you just wonder, why are we bamboozled with so many tariffs, so many policies that are probably just not working? We're not seeing anything that is even working for us as a nation. And talking about that, let's move over to Telecoms tariff. So on the Punch, it leads with Telecoms tariff hike. Federal government deploys security agents as NLC insists on protests. The writer here says protests will be hijacked by miscreants, says NSCDC spokesman. Subscribers oppose Labour's move. So it's something that's always been said. Anytime there's a protest coming up, what the government will always tell you is, oh, it will be hijacked by miscreants. So of course you shouldn't go ahead to protest. But how at best do you think we should make our voices heard in a case like this? And what do you think of this Telecoms tariff hike?
Yeah, you see, the telecom tariff is also an additional burden on Nigeria. It's as if like the ordinary person is being punished unnecessarily with taxation here and there and increase. But the way out of it is that, if the government is always using this issue of the protests being hijacked by people, there are so many ways by which you can strike. One way is maybe for a short of while people now, cut down the use of, the telephone. At least they boycott it for a little while. Boycott is one way to do it. The other thing is you don't have to come to the street and protest. You can now do come out, so there is no way the government should do. Should come out and say some people have hijacked it. But constitutionally, strike and protests are part of the things that are guaranteed by our constitution. The responsibility of the government is to make sure that the strikes are not hijacked by miscreants. What they do is they should come out and provide for police protection to the protesters, and then ensure that things goes on smoothly and peacefully. But where you have this situation, actually we are moving towards a dictatorial kind of policy instead of a democratic system. Because in democracy, these are part of the right of the citizens that they air their views against policies that they are not happy with. But here we are, anytime we have these things, and the government will now just the old policy of saying it is going to be hijacked and it's going to be hijacked, and now you put in security agencies to quell the protests. And by the time you are using force against it, you are now making it violent. So if as the saying goes, if you don't allow the process of peaceful change, you are now opening a chance of crisis and violence. So I think the government has to look at it. After all, Nigerians are suffering. Like you said earlier on, the leaders should empathize with Nigerians. They shouldn't be using their own position at their stick. They have to have a feeling of the fact that Nigerians are crying, and they have to have a feeling that they are there in position of power because Nigerians have trusted them to lead them. So I think their concern should be about Nigeria and Nigerians, not about themselves.
Fantastic. All right, let's move over to the petroleum sector. And on the Punch, it says OPEC foresees lower Dangote refinery petrol price. In fact, it's been a rumor that petrol might come down to about 600, and I'm like, of course, everybody's looking forward to that because it's been killing having to pay almost 1,000 naira. In fact, some people had to pay over 1,000 naira at some point. So that's on one hand. On the business NG, this is now our leading story here that says NNPC Dangote in subtle rivalry over fuel quality. So right now, everybody is obviously looking for a situation whereby the petrol price would be significantly affordable for most people. But should we be trading quality just because of the pricing? And what do you think about the little rift or the subtle rivalry between NNPC and Dangote right now?
Yeah, you see, the rivalry, if it were just competition, it is in the interest of the consumers. But if it is rivalry, now it is not going to augur well for everybody. Okay, the way they are taking it, I think they are pushing out of the system. Instead of being competitors, they are now being rivals. Look at what happened. Before Dangote, let's put it in context, before Dangote started this, there were claims by NNPC and this that Dangote's product was substandard. And this week also, there were some people or somebody, create content in showing that the Dangote product is far superior than that of NNPC. So these are the things that we have. By the time you are blindly struggling as rivals, you may end up, bringing down yourself because the competition will be so fierce. So what Nigerians, what consumers will want is just a competition in terms of that, so that will now bring quality, and that now will bring price down. To have qualitative products at a cheaper rate, which is what Nigerians want. But the way things are going now, I don't think it is something that Nigerians and even themselves, NNPC and Dangote, even themselves will want it to go because at the end of it, it will be very costly for either side with the way they are going ahead with this rivalry now.
So another story here says, despite shady deals, licensed loan apps surged to 380. So, of course, when we're looking at the economy and looking at how most people can barely afford things, they have to look at the loan apps. And we've seen a situation whereby even some of these loan apps can be crazy. They would probably put up your obituary if you do not pay them in time. They would call everybody on your contact, tell them crazy things about you. But we're still seeing the rise of them, about 380. How do you think the government can play in this and ensure that, maybe people do not have to take loans as much because they're working on the economy?
Yeah, it's because it is a cheap way, an easy way for people to make money and organizations. So that is why they are going to that direction. So I think even though we are talking of a liberalized economy, a free market economy, I think there is need for government to regulate by this environment. If you allow it, we are going to see a lot of things that is going to happen. The market, there will be a sort of, dubious people who do innocent Nigerians out of their own money. So I think, and it is a must that the government has to come. Liberal economy does not mean you allow free for all. It's not a license for everybody to do whatever he or she wants in the market. So there has to be a level playing ground. There has to be this thing to regulate the system in such a way that fairness and the market principle is allowed to dictate things, rather than the whims and caprices of few greedy, individuals.
I agree with you completely. All right, finally, let's look at Nature News. And Nature News has a story that says Jigawa to construct 10 mini dams to combat flooding, boost agriculture. I'm sure this is something that we should all applaud at the moment. But what's your take? The fact that Jigawa is to construct 10 mini dams to combat flooding. And how do you think the federal government or other state governments can also come into this as well?
You see, it is good that you now have dams and this to combat this. But the problem is, creating dams is one thing, and using them is another, and maintaining them is also another. Look at what happened in Maiduguri. The dams broke, and we had a disaster. Yeah. And look at what is happening here in Kano. Kano, I think, has the highest number of dams in Nigeria, but they are not being utilized. So I think just for the sake of creating, to construct, to have a contract and get a kickback out of it should not be the main concern, the overriding concern. The concern should be how do we make use of these dams? If they are going to make them and they are going to use them, it's in the interest of everybody. But the way we have it, there are so many dams that are not being used, they're utilized, and so this is just going to be a waste of resources if and told that we just create them for the sake of creating for political consideration. It is political consideration more than the economic viability. In fact, Jigawa being what it is, I think if you have dams and you effectively utilize them, it will greatly enhance the economic the economy of Jigawa and the issue of agriculture in Jigawa.
Oh, well, I think definitely if they're going to create this, we need to understand that creating it is one thing, maintaining it is another, executing it or using it is another, and obviously maintenance as well. And I know that one thing that we do not have as much in Nigeria is our maintenance culture, but this is where we definitely need to look into it and ensure that we do not have any disaster just because we're trying to save ourselves on one hand and not maintaining it. Anyways, this is where we have to wrap it up on this segment right now. Professor, we want to say thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure having you on our program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Have a wonderful day, sir.
Same to you.
Yeah. All right, we've been speaking with Professor Kamilu Sani Fage from the Department of Political Science, Bayero University, Kano. And we've just been looking at the global stories that made it to the front pages of our national dailies. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll be discussing experts who have warned inflation after 2025 budget passage. Please stay with us.